But my name is Yolanda Franklin, and I'm newly minted doctor. I am the first student of color to graduate from Florida State with a PhD in creative writing in the history of the program. So I am delighted to be here. I'm so glad to be invited to be here. I do want to ask a couple questions. I'm going to do some things differently because I love this. This is the audience that I really love to speak with. Young African Americans who love writing and poetry or who are at least interested. Yeah? So I'm going to ask one little question real quick. For poetry, with you guys being here as an audience, what are some things about poetry or poems that you just love to hear about? Is there anybody in the audience who'd be willing to share that make you think and have double meanings, more than one meaning? Great. How many of you are writing students, just by show of hands? Any kind of writing? Any kind of writing. You're a student here and you write something. You're a visitor here and you write stuff. Just you. You're the only person. Everybody else is shy about it. They're all shy about it. Well, I'm going to get right into it and tell you a little bit more about me, that I am from the South. So Southern tropes do show up in my poems. I am from Tallahassee, Florida. I am fourth generation Floridian. I just recently discovered that I also have roots in Barbados and the Gullah Sea Isles. So those things have also influenced my work recently. So I'm just going to jump into it. Being from the South, oh, thank you. Family is important. Anybody else here from the South other than me? Yeah? Okay, great. Okay. So I'm also a teacher, which is why I don't know how not to participate with the audience, but I don't necessarily walk around a whole lot unless I got my sneakers on. Nobody got that? All right. Yeah? I will put, okay, tennis shoes on with a nice outfit real quick. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Make it easier.
Awesome. Perfect. Can you guys hear me from this distance? Yep. Great. Okay. I'm into hip hop. I'm into music. The title of my collection of poems is Blood Vinyls. So you will see tropes from the topics I mentioned before, and music is a huge influence on who I am as a person, and it helps me arc my narratives of my work. So, elegy for Sean, Omega B-Boy stance. 1, Black people love hip hop. Ever see a B-Boy battle? I've got a burn scar from a cardboard breakdancing mat on my inner right knee. We make millions dubbing tracks for white folks. Well, not millions for each of us, but you know what I mean. A relevant definition of commerce when blacks make money from white folks enhancing their rhythm. Urban legend, a cardboard breakdancing mat will remain portable. Wasn't true, so Sean requested an 8x8 linoleum one for his 13th birthday. 2, boys, boys, boys. Every summer I had to fight. Gerald, Wendell, that big kid who stole that purse Gamma made me carry. The counterbalance of his toned arm spun like a slingshot double Dutch tempo. Damn, I couldn't get a punch in. Couldn't equalize control. My battle record of copper pennies, twin scabs on my knees, reopened, bled down my shins faster than I could belt drive away on one of their Huffy bikes. Huffy bicycles are for boys. Domestics are for girls. Turntables. Have you ever wondered why Homeland Security isn't an office run by girls? 3, our Gamma didn't have a Maytag dryer. Since the summer I turned 12, Tasha and I pinned the line to dry. Double wide equals poverty. Out North Ridge Road, Auntie lived unhitched in a double wide like Gamma, but with cable and Yo MTV Raps. Sean used the remote control as a crossfader, channeled our commercial conversations to a cappella. Poverty equals inherited heirloom. Gamma died in hers. Parliaments lit like birthday candles inhaled her. Auntie hitched, inherited a brick house on Nancy Drive. 4. Nancy Drive's yard, the square footage of an LP, fade to the church congregation in chrome camellias under a mourner's tent, once used as shade for front yard barbecues. Auntie, a scratched album cradled by Uncle Michael in the milk crate frame of the doorway. Blueprint for leaving a black man. There's an epigraph by Tina Turner. I'm a new pair of eyes every time I am born. I hit Tina and then she hit him solo. Debut, the brink of a platform boot in the back seat of a limo scene. Mrs. Turner left that black man. Her name and autumn weave split. You know you love him, but can't understand why he treats you like he do when he's such a good man. 1984, Tina can't stand the rain against her window. Brings back sweet memories. Oh, pain, don't you remember? The a cappella arabesque of a proud Mary, solo. Buddhist rosaries confessed a Hail Mary of catcalls caused by her fishnets duet with a denim mini. Let's skirt. Ike called back. Sometime after midnight, he wanted to re-rehearse stage positions again. He agreed that he looked great right there next to Tina holding his bass guitar and Afro pick, then shouted, "You better be good to me." My husband, too, held a six-shooter to my head. I negotiated what's love got to do with staying. Our sleep children nestled like toes in peekaboo stilettos, and that scratched vinyl of night looped. I'm a soul survivor the night I became queen. How y'all doing? Doing all right? Good. Like I promised, a little bit about where I come from. Florida Coven. Not sure I'm strong enough to cast this spell, but Marie Laveau entrusts her to wear the crown of power. Seance, gumbo, etouffee, and a blanket of snakeskin to Zora. A Florida girl, too, drenched in light, baptized by Gulf tides, a conjurer who can make a man come home, and recipe gree-gree to rule the man you love. So no surprise, there are no real borders in the play fences, yet it usurps female rooms from Tallahassee, my birthplace. The lineage of Florida women grow trickery roots, so no surprise, Angela Bassett's cast as Marie Laveau reconjures the ancestral narrative of our American horror story. So then I am a conduit mulatto, one of the first skeleton keys created by a Bayesian blacksmith with Cherokee brows, a Florida gal from a coven, women grown right up out the ground with hips as wide as the Okeechobee. So no surprise, every man I've loved falls entranced, still ponders what it means to miss Tallahassee. I love poetic form, so I love playing around with the bop because you can have a really nice marriage with the narrative and music, which is the thing that drives a lot of my work. So the title is Bop, 40 Acres and a Mule on Apalachicola National Forest. He left deep-rooted pecan trees, arms full of hanging moss, backdrop the eavesdrop of soughing trees, near cornfields where sweet potato and tomato gardens border remnants of a rusted fence, the color of dried blood, once used to pin a wayward bull my daddy and his brother taunted on walks home, past the cotton mouth basking on Grandma Lacey's cement doorstep. You had better hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. I always jumped or rode over snakes with the front wheel of my Huffy bike. Daddy pulped bullet grapes or muscadines for moonshine in the mudroom shot off from the garage, taught me how to wade out of quicksand, catch catfish with bare hands while squatting in shallow pools of fresh water, and how to track deer, bear, wild boar, and the Thanksgiving turkey, and how to pick blackberries and plant a strawberry garden atop the hill where a 7-foot rattler interrupted 5 brothers with shotguns. Hush, 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 somebody's calling my name. Could thunder have caused the earthquake? Grandma Lacey said loosed floorboards and rattled her photo with the picture frame lamp of President Kennedy. The same summer, I willed folded washcloths to levitate over the laundry basket, like butterflies caught in a mason jar. The ghost of my great-grandfather, John Wyatt Hill, called my name nightly in psalm. You better hush, 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 somebody's calling my name. Double Dutch bust. Want to hear some grown-up? He locked up. Got 45 for false imprisonment and aggravated assault. I solely parent while that Panamine on furlough eats for free. He forced a double-barreled curling iron there where he came. The power cord ain't long enough to serve his outlet. He enters me instead. Holds a 6-shooter hostage against my frame, clutches me and pillages our waterbed sheets. Prisoners, our shadows furnish the living room, as heavy hips compass his junk inside me. It didn't make the news. Mama said the other girl was nearly beaten from her life. This next poem, titled She Ain't No Cindy Lou, is for Dorothy Dandridge. Everybody know who Dorothy Dandridge is? Yeah? No? Wave if you do. Okay, 3 people. All right. She was the first African-American female to be nominated for Best Actress in the Academy Awards 1955 for Dorothy Dandridge. Picture pixie-ish Hollywood actresses, figurines with white gams and stilettos, white blonde coiffed figurines with brunette brows, no shabby chics, glams and gems, couture, a meek parasitic beauty, framed by white figures, in ermine stoles, chiffon and crinoline, cameras, flash, charade voyeurism, halo figurines, Their 6 vixen frames, front row and boas, fidgeting in their seats. An irresistible salient feature amidst Grace, Ava, Judy, Jane, and Audrey, a dolled up Dorothy, interrupts the cliche. This feat assures fixated doe eyes dazzled as powdered noses, canopied, picnic, red pouts. Postures erect, gloved fingers, crossed as eyelashes applauded cheekbones. They curtsy, cut teeth on a black diamond's sepia flesh. Figured, without demur, some glib glam on the periphery initiates a whisper about a jet feature. Should Negroes leave Mississippi? An alcove tainted by the tabooed fruit of estranged and opal features. Yet she's no shrinking violet. Without explanation, she figures, if I were white, I could capture the world. That last line is a quote that Dorothy actually said, and the poetic form for this is a ghazal. I love forums, so much fun. This next poem is titled White Room Syndrome, and there is an epigraph that helps us situate the title and the situation of the thing that happened in real life. After the poet Kenneth Goldsmith read the St. Louis County autopsy report of Michael Brown, the teenager killed by police in Ferguson, as a poem at the Interrupt 3 conference at Brown University in March 2015. Preamble. White room syndrome is the white piece of paper facing the author, or a clear and common sign of the failure of the author's imagination. 1. Habeas corpus. Isn't an autopsy report always a eulogy? Especially when the autopsy of a black body is read aloud for unpoetic effect to indifferent white academics attending a poetry reading on an Ivy League campus, and the genitalia of a black body is still the last line. When a white male poet performs as medical examiner and slave owner at an auction block, does the audience become the body? 2. Forensic report. An autopsy report is almost never read as a eulogy. It is always the salt that wakes the dead in hopes of scaring away the funeral. I clenched my Uncle Sonny's hand because my body hung over the edge of a cliff during my cousin Sean's funeral. A trail of salt ruined my makeup. I tried not to get snot on his hand. I can still hear my aunt's distress from the loss of her only son while dressing his only daughter for his funeral. When these audience members were interviewed, did they have stories that they need interpreters for? Or maybe the seats were just rows and rows and empty rows of coffins. 3. Eating the other. Does the eulogy become ekphrastic or something like a resurrection? Perhaps we should imagine the catalog of the Library of Congress's transcripts of the live tweets. I can hear Julius Fusik's entry of the gladiators over another impossible culpability. Call it poetry, work, art, avant-garde, uncreative, neo-racism, or necromancy. They will take the body again and again and again and again. In the same vein, we know as Black folks in America, it just seems to be so bleak. But I am going to read a poem in the same vein as the one for Michael Brown for Trayvon Martin. And I did bring you guys posters, broadsides rather, that you could purchase, and I would be happy to sign for you. I'm going to read it now because I think it's important next to Michael Brown, this poem, White Room Syndrome for Michael Brown. Manual for still hunting white-tailed deer in a gated community. It's a found poem for Trayvon Martin. Deer hunting in Florida is as old as recorded history. Actions delineated here are designed to ensure public desires for recreation. As deer populations grow, so does popularity of hunting for recreation. The exploitation of deer increases during this period. Still hunting is characterized by stalking or concealing oneself and waiting for quarry. The practice of hunting at feeding stations was legalized, enhancing opportunities for still hunters to locate and harvest. In vehicles while coordinating movements with cell phones, hunters hunt larger blocks, sit next to trees, or hide in bushes. The newly formed Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission recognizes the need for public hunting lands, so Florida's acres are open to public hunting, the vast majority open to deer hunting. To provide landowners with tools and flexibility to control deer numbers, the Commission implemented a deer depredation program. Overpopulation is the most pressing challenge. Deer in Florida are considerably smaller. In Florida, whitetails are known to have various types of trauma and are species of wildlife whose overabundance degrades its own habitat as well as the habitats of others. Delaying harvest of bucks until maturity carries rewards. More bucks in subsequent years, and seeing bucks is a key component of hunter satisfaction. Seminole County is infested with white-tailed deer, so legislation approved deer eradication throughout South Florida. Managing hunter satisfaction enhances overall recreational experiences. The Commission began the comprehensive surveillance program to occur at 2 levels, passive and active. Passive involves observation and culling of free-ranging deer that demonstrate abnormal behavior, suspect or target animals. Active includes random investigating of hunter-harvested deer. The challenge will be to provide an array of opportunities that deer harvest will continue as a necessary and desirable practice for many years. Whether a hunter prefers to harvest only mature bucks or chooses to harvest any deer within range is a value judgment. It is considered the most popular game in Florida. Thank you. All right. I decided that I also should read mommy poems. Any daughters in here who have some interesting relationships with their mamas? Anybody want to wave on that? They're like, what do you mean by interesting? Can it sometimes be challenging? No? Yes? Okay. Oh, even at my age, we still love our mothers. The older you get, the more you remember things differently. Yeah? Okay. The title of this poem is, I'm going to read 2 mommy poems. That's what I call them. Is Truth Be Told. My attempt with this poem is because I love music, like I said, but I like music on vinyl records mostly. I know that might make me OLD, but that's okay. But I'm really intrigued, this is what inspired this poem, by the way, what the record does when it spins, when music is played in a particular sort of way, as in that's the medium in which the narrative of the songs and the lyrics with the songs on vinyl is transposed for us to hear. Truth be told. 1. Mother, I'm waiting for you to die so I can tell the story about how on the night my husband tried to kill me, I called to tell you this would happen. My husband, the gun, the rape, the gun, the dream I had the night before, under the ceiling fan, a metronome of doom, like the single sound of a turnstile playing What's Love Got to Do With It? On repeat, I repeat, help me make it through the night. And you ignored my premonition while we were held hostage in that house on a four-way stop. 2. All I could remember were the Sundays you and Daddy played Tina like the secular prey, let's stay together. But my husband and your grandkids and I drove by that house today on the corner of that four-way stop. On the corner of that four-way stop, I left that corner of the four-way stop, and now I know you had to know how it takes a fool to learn how love don't love. Now I am a deck full of queens, centuries who steal claw, better be good to me. And no, I know you still believe that I deserve this soundtrack I live, but didn't I make you the most beautiful consequences of love? This next poem is another bop. The song comes from a Bessie Smith song. Autobiography of a Jukebox, or 5 Ways to Kill a Gardenia. Daddy never beat me like Mama did. She made me bend between my engorged breast and pregnant belly over the tub edge to scrub porcelain white as a wedding dress. She said, I ain't never gonna be able to wear anyway. Saturday mornings, I removed the ring of sin, made it a virgin. Again, beat back nausea and silt. I kilt myself into exact, prepped folds of cotton, white cloth with Ajax, same way, gamma donned, domestic work, like reluctant prayer. I used to be your sweet mama, but now I'm just as sour as can be. Mama got demons in spades, used Daddy's black leather belt, one he wore wherever he took me. Guess it was pride, or maybe just her version of backhanded. It ain't easy to admit the blues is a woman, a supernatural something who carries a clutch of penance and provocation and bravado. Maybe Mama would tell me if she could about life without my father, offer more than a folder full of 40-year-old newspaper clippings with dog ears bent like the edges of Bessie's blue notes. Mama tucked her jealousy behind her ear like a gardenia. Yes, I'm mad and I have a right to be after what your daddy did to me. Mama folded to her knees when her only daughter arched her back in the secular name of love, like Janie Crawford beneath a pear tree, her eyes watching God and a dust-bearing bee sink into sanctums of blooms instead of some pulpit and pews to line chastity's hymn. Perhaps the blues is a good woman, quiet as it's kept, under siege and in service of myth, to sharpen love in a nice dry house. Perhaps I just can't imagine how Mama had to bend into an instrument never meant to carry her tune. I used to be your sweet papa, but now I'm just as sour as can be. Mama poems get hard, gotta tell the truth. Truth ain't always pretty. Yeah? Y'all still with me? Awesome. I'm looking for joy. Joy with a little bit more light. There's a poetic form called a cento where you take lines from other poems or other things you read and you put them all together and make a new poem. I have done my version of that, but I like to call it sampling, the way that we do with hip hop, right? With a tune, okay. So this one is sampling in Miracle of the Black Female Poet, and it's after the poets Phyllis Wheatley, Lucille Clifton, and June Jordan. Won't you please come and celebrate with me what she shapes into a kind of life without a model, both non-white and woman, a sable Venus whose voyage blesses boats that brought her here, and thank whatever gods may be for her unconquerable soul. Oh, come and do marvel at how could she sing and know of a lyrical life? How did she know and see to be except herself? Come celebrate with me that I am. Perhaps you will, because each day something has tried to kill me and failed. Y'all doing good? Awesome. Southern Girl Hymn. I come from below the bedazzled belt of the Mason-Dixon line, from a place where the Florida boot can be seen as Jim Crow's stiletto. I come from women who rule blues men, who carry guitar picks as pacifiers and rub out cigarette butts like blunts of sage, with the same circuitous notion that a wedding ring does not make them monuments or placeholders on pot shelves. I come from women with swollen hands who create to spite a Parkinson's tremor and rogue memory, the sugar-girdled hips and red velvet laughter luring insulin, the way Cat 4 hurricanes sepia Gulf Coast skylines, snap its shawl to whip pecan trees and rustle ratchet wind chimes on wooden front porches. Where I come from, my South sounds like pejorative stereotypes, like the clanging of my mother's aluminum cake pans, like Trayvon Martin's thank you ma'am drawl at checkout, and Paula Dean's braised remark to Hollis Johnson, an employee she asked to join her on stage, saying, "He's as black as the chalkboard behind him." I come from magnolias and dogwoods, strawberries and wild onions, stalks of cornfields and wild acre peas, muscadine trees and cotton emancipations, of reneged 40-acre deeds, a place under a horizon of fickle rainstorms, where snow only pleads for raincoats, Grandma Lacey's crocheted hats, and a red-thumbed mitten. I come from secrets too big to be heard, a noise so loud angels would swoop and dive from heaven, where you gotta be able to either sing the battle hymn of the Republic or Dixie. Question for the audience, another one. How many of you have gotten used to the hurricanes? Maybe? Just a little bit? Do you look forward to them? Some people look forward to them. No? Not at all. You do not look forward to the hurricanes. I look forward to them sometimes. I mean, I get a little terrified, don't get me wrong, but you do get days off school. No? All right. I try to look for the silver lining. All right. I'm going to read a couple poems about hurricanes. Hurricanes show up a lot. Florida's History of Hurricanes. This is after a poem by one of my teachers, Teresa Cater. Because we cannot know, we hide dogwood branches used as switches, snap cigarette sound as green beans, not knowing a lighter lures dogs from fields with its flame. Her papier-mâché screens surround the house. There's a boxed lit candle where banana tree leaves bend next to the master-locked bike shed, where girls weren't allowed. Gamma's second husband, a strapping man, palms a Budweiser, escorts her at night through the screen door. A magnolia tree roots the yard's soot and square stone tablets in the years she lay legless, cancerous, waiting for the oncologist or endocrinologist, praying. Then, in the season of barren dearth and futility, it must begin, the season of her casualty. No Southern gospel on the radio, no choir, no voice rebuking, no voice, fugue of clotheslines and eye wall. Because we cannot know, we imagine what will happen to us without you. Most things I remember, a Category 3 storm, pruned oak tree limbs on lawns in Indian descent, Black neighborhoods. Uncle Randy threatened to ride his bike like the Green Witch in The Wizard of Oz, daring a police officer to write him a ticket for speeding. Like months of remission, the eye shifts. The papier-mâché screens are bored behind calm curtains. And how could she learn to drive after that fire? A woman who'd never seen brick return to clay. Downtown, the seventh graders in their Bell's Bermuda shorts extol science rocks. Black Cloud, the great Florida hurricane of 1928. We all remember one, a speeding train, sheets of rain, all indications that the Panhandle's obsequious hurricane Kate amputates Leon County. The sky cannot remember its clouding. Around her bed, stolen limbs haunt kneecaps, still, troubles a pack. Hair, hot combed, Sunday straight, over a gas stove, urged to slip one between your lips to drag yourself from this life in a smoky halo. I worried you would forget to check the horizon in time. Katrina conjures gumbo. Bayou's Kitchen, September 2005. Simmer in a kitchen where the crook of a wooden spoon often begs for mercy on the burn of an eye. A whole stick and a half of butter and a teaspoon of flour blanket the bottom of a skillet the way naked souls seethe on a rooftop, ripen jaundice and rhythms and flicks of backlash like mud bugs. Today's menu. FEMA flew over Marie Laveau's X-marked grave. The aerial view over Nola's deep bowl of surrender white tea flags looked like rice grains, graffiti with black spray paint campaigns, pungent with rescues and yous. Creoles let off steam in a boiling melody of filet, onions, and a roux of missing persons and isolated identities. Their bodies like crawfish sopped in okra and tomatoes before a burial in season, soot roofs, unsolicited, even after the president saw the flipped French Quarter. Say grace for the nourishment of our bodies, for Christ's sake. Probably 2 more. Okay. Porch sitter sipping sweet tea in heaven. What you need to know about this poem is that the poem is a dialogue between the two characters from Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. Janie Crawford, the protagonist, and her best friend, who the narrative is being told to, Phoebe Watson. Child, it's not about the water, though love is like the sea. Faults always lift under siege. It's about the sex. It's a moving thing. Katrina flaunt her diva complex, but still in all, her stiletto stilted, and that slut slipped her hips over the Big Easy, lap danced over the bayou, strut through the French Quarter. A harlot in humid perfume stuck, tugged her girdle, hula hooped like a wooden spoon, while Dixie's sugar spilled. Bystanders stared. An ankle bracelet snagged the head of a tombstone. Seduction rain danced, the Creoles see. It was when we was leaving or fixing to consider it the first time, me and Tea-Cake, heartbreaking from the muck back in 28. That's what Trina act like, a wildebeest of a storm, like the one in the Everglades. The sky had God's handwriting in its foreshadows, a sepia photo tinged with the rust of waiting. Girl, looked like death came through there. The horizon kneeled, spirits flood the sky. Watch, God parade parasols, balloon, under the shimmy of Spanish moss shawls, carry-ons, epigraph tombstones. An insatiable rape submerged the glades. You know it too. Spoke with that conjure woman who say Trina left there, hurried in a halter top, a fiend for Louisiana's 5-day erection, pining over some lover, a sultry waltz to New Orleans moan. Last poem. In the back. Thank y'all for having me come. It's stuck. Ooh, where did it go? It's in here. It's stuck. Here it is. Paintbrushes and booze, 8-track for Uncle Kent. Y'all know what an 8-track is? Okay, I have to check. Y'all so young. The epigraph is Memories Don't Live Like People Do by Angie Stone. Thought everyone had at least one uncle who's a modern-day Stagger Lee who pimps a Kangol and keeps a weed stash in the top drawer of a nightstand behind a pearl-handled pocket knife he once used to shave a man of his pride, then reused it to pop open the caked lid of a paint can and flicked the back of the blade to release the ooze from inside a natural light in his love shack built from beams of condemned houses, a shotgun scaffold with a tin roof so thin rain showers sound like gunshots, thick insulation of peeping toms seeping from faux plywood walls to eye wallpaper of jet beauty centerfolds. I imagined my uncle as the black Hugh Hefner, Dolomite reincarnate who drove the white Ibis 65 hardtop Dodge Dart with crimson interior my father bartered for refurbishing in exchange for the German shepherds he trained for Tallahassee Police Department's K-9 unit. After hours and on days off from the steady painting job that left an ash of primer so thick on marble-sized knuckles cocoa butter couldn't quench it. These same hands extend a blunt rolled airtight out a car window as a nod of advice and a squint through bloodshot eyes led lifelong lessons on how to master pressure points on my cousin's hands and neck. an exercise in pain tolerance carried over to a good card game of knuckles that lasts as long as Jackie, his heavy steady, could tolerate the screams over her high, which was shorter than the width of their blue jean bell bottoms and those sideburns. Send me, shotgun, in that Dodge Dart as the Isleys croon, drifting on a memory. Ain't no place I'd rather be, from the 8-track console. Thank you very much. Why do I write poems? It's always interesting because young people always think that some spark happened or a thing happened, and those things are true. But it's not often, for me in my experience, that it's encouragement. Does that make sense? Okay. I was actually in middle school. I was 10 years old, and you know when you're kids and they first teach you poetry and you learn about haiku and tankas, right? And my teacher chose 3 of my poems to be in a little newsletter, and I was like, oh, this is cool that I'm gonna have poems in a newsletter. So from that point on, I thought about it and I was like, oh, can you just write these all the time? That would just be fun. I mean, I'm 10. So my mom frequently took us to the library on Saturdays, and I went to ask the librarian if whether or not there were any poets who looked like me who had my name. And my first name is Yolanda, and so she came up with Yolanda Nikki Giovanni, and then I began to read poetry at that age. Like, this is cool. I like this. I think this is the thing to do. So why do I write poetry? It keeps me alive. It keeps me healthy. It's the thing I have to do. It's like breathing for me. It's a necessity. That's a good question. What's interesting, because I teach freshmen mostly, is that they always come to me very nervous, and it doesn't take more than 3 weeks, and I can't get them to be quiet. And that means no matter what happens the rest of the school term, I've done my service to the universe. That you are not shy and you are not quiet, and you want to talk and you want to tell your stories and share them with me. So I welcome any comments, even if maybe this forum is too shy and you want to talk to me off to the side, that's fine too. I welcome it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. You guys were great.